I'm Ibeth Brusual. It's Sunday, and right now on Political Connections.
In business and in combat, if you don't get things done, if you don't get results, really bad things happen. And I think it's more of that ethos that we need in Washington.
From combat to Congress, a deep dive into the agenda of Congressman Michael Waltz from District 6. His ideas for health care, prescription drugs, the proposed U.S. Space Force, as well as his reaction to the Mueller Report, all straight ahead. Plus, the Green New Deal. Maybe you've heard about this. Senator Rick Scott certainly has, and he says the proposal wants to get rid of air travel. Is that true? We put that to the PolitiFact Truthometer. That's all on this week's Political Connections, and it starts right now. And welcome to Political Connections, everybody. I'm Ibeth Brusual. Today marks day 116 of the 116th Congress. And while there are many veteran lawmakers serving on the Hill, there are also many newcomers. For some, first-time members being thrust into the bedlam of D.C. can be unnerving, but for others, it's just the next step in their political career. And beyond Washington, it's all about their home district. Case in point, Congressman Michael Waltz from District House 6, serving North, Lake, Flagler, and Volusia counties. Political Connections, Greg Angel greeted the congressman on the road in Volusia County.
Hey, guys.
The sun greets a new day for freshman Congressman Michael Waltz.
See you. Yeah, good to see you. See behind me.
He's in New Smyrna Beach, the heart of his district, talking for the moment solar power.
We look forward to showing you around.
A quick drive gives a glimpse of Florida Power and Light's 1,200-acre solar farm. There's some 300,000 panels here.
They're about 3.5 megawatts each.
Combined, this system can convert the sun's rays to power about 15,000 homes.
At the end of the day, this is cleaner. Is it cheaper?
Solar seems to be fueling new ideas for the future.
To me, this isn't just a jobs issue. It's obviously an environmental issue. It's a national security issue.
It is also, to Waltz, an issue of life and death, a lesson he learned on the front lines in Afghanistan.
As a veteran, I can't tell you how many soldiers that I lost, that we've lost, carting diesel fuel back and forth to remote outposts over very, very insecure supply lines. When those outposts could have had a couple of solar panels and a wind turbine and been totally self-sufficient.
For now, Waltz is taking on tours of solar farms instead of those tours of war. But it is that military experience that punched his interest to run for office.
Not enough veterans in Congress. You know, there is nothing like having people there that have skin in the game, that put their life on the line from their various earliest age for this country.
Of the 535 members of Congress, 96 are veterans. That may seem high, but compare that to the 1970s when 3/4 of Congress were veterans.
In business and in combat, if you don't get things done, if you don't get results, really bad things happen. And I think it's more of that ethos that we need in Washington.
It is a town Waltz knows well. He's a one-time senior advisor to former Vice President Dick Cheney and a senior director in the Pentagon. But the father of one turned politician says he's left little time to idle.
I'm not going to ease into it. We've got our foot on the gas.
He's been in the job for just about 4 months and has already taken up a series of bills ranging from Gold Star families to Venezuela. But the toughest challenge thus far is not a bill itself, but simply finding a bridge between two divided sides.
I started a caucus called For Country that is comprised of Democrats and Republicans who have served overseas and are focused on mission accomplishment.
That mission, he says, is about moving forward together. It's a start, but the reality is that some of the issues can be staggering. Most notable, which is likely to play a crucial role in the 2020 election, health care.
I think we need to fix it, and we need to fix it fast. The philosophical difference that you're going to see is when I say we have to make it more affordable, I mean things like selling across state lines, tort reform, portability of care, fraud in the Medicare Medicaid system. When I think many Democrats say make it more affordable, they mean for the government to take that on. And I think that's a recipe for disaster.
In Volusia County,
It just seems like those things are fragile.
Greg Angel,
But they're pretty sturdy.
Political Connections.
And Congressman Michael Waltz joining me right now. Thank you so much for being here, Congressman.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's pick up the conversation where Greg Angel's report ended, and that's talking about healthcare and prescription drug initiatives. Talk to me about the state line issues when it comes to these two topics.
Well, right now you can't sell necessarily across state lines, and one of the things I've advocated and many conservatives have advocated for is bringing the free market in to drive down costs. You should be able to buy wherever you can in terms of plans. You shouldn't be forced to have mandatory coverages in your plan. If I have a young man who rarely goes to the doctor but just needs a catastrophic plan, why does he have all of these other mandatory items in there that are driving up costs? Right?
Why is it? Is it because every state is just looking out for themselves?
Well, from a federal standpoint, it's because Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, mandated all of those items to be in there, and then it's essentially someone who just wants a commuter. Maybe they just want a beat up old Honda and they're being forced to buy a Cadillac, even though because what it did for the federal plan was then spread those costs out so we could afford all of those other aspects. The problem is people have decided, you know what, I'll just take no car and take the penalties, the tax penalties that have come in, and that's why Obamacare is collapsing as we speak.
By the way, speaking of cars, you can do that. You can go to another state, get a car, come back to Florida, and some of the times taxes are cheaper somewhere else.
Well, the other thing, look at portability of care. So should you be able to go from job to job and keep the same insurance and not have to keep switching, just like if you remember, back when you had to lose your cell phone number when you switched providers, you now can keep that cell phone number as you go. Same thing.
You're a supporter of that.
Same thing. It's called the portability of care, and we really need to get out of the box and look at these different issues. But I think the biggest thing is actually looking at tort reform and driving down frivolous lawsuits, which drive testing and ends up driving up costs across the board. So
let me tell you a conversation that I've had recently with some of the people, one of them recently at a drugstore, and they were asking me about this whole Canadian connection and the prescription drug issue. And one of the things they said was, and it made me pause and go, so I'm presenting that question to you. In America, we have so many pharmaceuticals. How is it that we have to rely on another country? Why can't the companies that are here just bring the prices down so that you don't have to rely on getting a deal with Canada and other countries?
That is it. We could probably do a whole hour on that, but at the end of the day,
you're soaking in it. I mean, so why not?
Yeah, at the end of the day, we do have some of the best medicines in the world, and that does take, in fairness, a lot of research and development, and we have the most stringent FDA in terms of oversight in the world, and it takes a long time to get that through the pipeline. So the companies do have to recover their costs. However, we can't be padding our margins too much, and the president has been very clear when you have those interim pharmacy providers essentially negotiating with the pharmaceuticals. I think that's a big part of what is driven to overcost. And bottom line is you can't have people paying tens of thousands of dollars a year for their medicines that we need. And you're right, we shouldn't have to go abroad.
And some of these pharmaceutical companies that are in America, the medicine is available cheaper for folks in other countries, but not here on American soil.
Right, because they go to generics faster, and a lot of it's a process issue that we have to clean up. And love them or hate them, but the president has been very out front on this issue, and so is Governor DeSantis in terms of driving those costs down. What it does not mean is the government just absorbing those costs and then passing them on in taxes. We have to actually get to the heart of the issue.
Yeah, those pharmaceutical companies, many of them are making a whole lot of money.
That's right.
Space Force. When this
big fan.
When
Two words back.
Okay, so I was going to take my time and read some description. Why are you a big fan? Because there were a lot of snickers that came towards the White House, towards the president when he came up, when he started talking about this stuff.
So this is actually an idea that has been brewing in the Congress well before the president came in. But
he's been the most
many times he took it on, and so suddenly we're finding folks who were for it are now against it because they're just against anything the president puts out. But at the end of the day, the just as the United States dominated air power in the 20th century, we have to dominate space power in the 21st century. And the 21st century space race is on. The Chinese are putting landers on the moon, the Indians, the Israelis, the Russians, the Japanese. The United States needs to get that edge back. And why is this so important? $500 billion of our economy is dependent on space now, and that's estimated to double to over $1 trillion in the next 10 years. We're going to be going from a launch or two per month to a launch per day.
I think a lot
in
of
the next 10 years.
After the shuttles were retired years ago, I think a lot of people thought that's it. You know,
I think that was
done.
a huge mistake on the Obama administration. It's put us behind. The average person touches space 26 times a day between banking, telecommunications, navigation, how things arrive in Walmart from all over around the world for under $1 is highly dependent on space, and that dependency is only growing. Here's the problem, Beth. We put that infrastructure up there decades ago. It's highly vulnerable. It can be easily attacked. It's not redundant, and that's why we have to reassert ourselves in space.
So this is my next question to you, because you're talking about the lay of the land and if it would come the headquarters to the state of Florida, which I know you're a huge advocate, and many other people, Governor DeSantis, advocating for that as well. So if the Space Force headquarters, follow me along here, was to be based out of Florida, would you have Space Force here, and then you have McDonald over in Tampa, which is CENTCOM, that's where it's located.
Central Command and Special Operations Command.
Would that make Florida just super duper vulnerable to attacks, and when it comes to just bad apples around the world trying to get, stick it to the United States?
No, I think that will make Florida super duper safe, right? Because we have the headquarters of these entities. You'd have Special Operations Command, Central Command, Southern Command in Miami, and then the U.S. Space Command, which ostensibly would be in Cape Canaveral or Patrick Air Force Base. But at the end of the day, that's also bringing this, think of the supply chain and the high-paying jobs that stem from that. So it's not just the military portion, though. And as a conservative, I love this. It's the private sector. It's SpaceX. It's Blue Origin, OneWeb, Firefly, which just opened down in the Cape.
Yeah, you were just at Blue
All of
Origin.
those engineering, and I was just at Blue Origin yesterday. All of those engineering, manufacturing, mechanics type jobs. I'm also a huge advocate of vocational training and getting away from pressing people to four-year liberal arts degrees and back to learning a trade in the manufacturing sector. All of those things will be coming together around space.
Hey, let me ask you this. Proposed timeline, development-wise, for Space Force. We're talking about 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. What are you seeing?
Well, it would be a growth. We're looking to establish it in the next year, and that would come in the next defense bill. Then they would have to decide on where the headquarters is located. But it also has all kinds of other benefits. It's going to have research and development. It's going to have space transportation. So think of the Air Force split off from the Army in the 1940s. Now the Space Force will be splitting off from the Air Force because it has very unique needs and types of individuals. What I'm looking forward to is the uniform, though. That's going to be pretty neat as well.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, we have to hit the pause button for just a hot second. I want to get your take on something that everybody's talking about, and that's the Mueller Report.
Sure.
So please stay with us. That's when Political Connections continues after a quick break right here on Spectrum News 13. And we're back on Political Connections now with Congressman Michael Waltz. Okay, let's talk about the Mueller Report, because that's a big talker right now.
Sure.
So it came out just 10 days ago. You've had time to digest it, to look at it. What's your take on it?
Well, at the end of the day, the predicate of the whole thing was collusion, right? Did an American, and specifically did the Trump campaign, collude with a foreign hostile power to undermine our democracy? And the answer is clear, no. I was one of those who said we need to let the investigation play out. It's important to remember the scope of the whole thing: 69 attorneys, FBI agents, analysts, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 witnesses, 13 countries. For so much breathless reporting and anticipation, we have to now accept its findings. And I think a lot of people don't want to. At the end of the day, I think it's a good day for America that no one was working with the hostile power. But what I can't let us lose sight of is that our democracy is under attack. We have to separate the two. No one from the campaign worked with Russia, but Russia is still attacking our democracy, going after the heart of our electoral system at the county level, and we have to continue to work to protect that integrity, and we can't lose sight of that as this thing gets so politicized.
Can you touch on the Florida connection? Because part of the Mueller report did talk about what you're referring to, the probe and Florida, I mean, being named in that.
Yeah, that's right. And I've asked for when we get back in session up in Washington, D.C. for a briefing from the FBI on exactly, it said at least one county had its network compromised. And I want to get to the bottom of how that happened, what happened, and what we're doing about it. Haven't identified the county to my knowledge.
I'm going back in my memory banks. I mean, many of us here in the newsroom were in touch with various supervisors of elections.
Yeah.
Some of them, one in particular, telling us off the record, oh yeah, we got a call from FBI, but the bad guys, did not get through.
Right.
So,
and it's important to note that the Department of Homeland Security, I'm on the Intelligence Subcommittee of the Armed Services, the National Security Agency, they are on this. I mean, we got through 2018 and now we're heading into 2020. But at the same time, we have to stay on top of it. We can't let this get so politicized and focused on all of the hearings that are going on and lose sight of the broader national security implications.
The FBI will be debriefing Governor Ron DeSantis at some point on this.
He's requested as well.
Is it a red flag because the Russians tried to infiltrate?
They have tried and are trying. I mean, this is ongoing as we speak, and it's not just the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, and various criminal groups as well. So it's down at the county level, which makes it more vulnerable, but the Department of Homeland Security is working with election officials to get them security clearances and kind of tied into those intelligence feeds. But, that's thousands and thousands of systems that we have to protect.
So when the 4-page report came out, you're saying that should have been it? Everybody in Washington just chill out?
Well, I think,
I
think we have to get to the bottom of was the FISA system, which enables surveillance of domestic, of Americans, was that abused? Because it seems to have been incredibly flimsy. We've heard a lot of reporting of this dossier that is used. So I do think we need to get to the bottom of it. My understanding is the Attorney General is working on it.
Yes.
But my other point is every hour that we spend in the Congress obsessing over this, we're not talking infrastructure, transportation, water, national security, and all of the other issues that we have to deal with. So at some point, 2 years in, we've got to move on.
Well, the obsession was that 4 pages come out first.
Right.
And the Democrats were saying, we want the full report.
Sure.
400
And I voted
pages.
for the full report to be made public.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they just want to see the whole thing?
And I voted to absolutely make that public, make it transparent. But again, do the Democrats who are now in charge of the House want to govern, or do they just want to continue to do everything they can to hammer this president when at the end of the day, there was no collusion? We have to keep in mind the predicate of the whole thing.
I want to just very quickly, we don't have a lot of time, Special Counsel Robert Mueller invited to testify, as you just mentioned, for the House Intelligence Committee. Would testimony have substance, or is it just like one more thing for Democrats to just say, look, we're still looking into this?
Yeah, I think so now we're essentially investigating the investigators and investigating the investigation. Again, when are we done? When do we move on? When do we handle issues? When I talk to Floridians, it's not Russia, Russia, Russia. It is all of those other issues that are affecting their lives.
Lots that we covered today. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Congressman Michael Waltz from District 6. Lots of topics that we got through, and always an open invitation for you to come back on the show.